Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Raymond. When my girlfriend insisted I meet her parents over dinner, she said it was important to her. When someone you care about asks you to do something like that, you just do it. So I showed up, thinking it would be a simple dinner, polite conversation, maybe some awkward small talk. But at that dinner, my girlfriend laughed and trashed me right in front of her parents, in Spanish. She thought I wouldn't understand a word she was saying. But what she didn't know was that I understood everything. And by the end of that dinner, I gave her a surprise she never expected. Looking back to when I met my girlfriend, I had just gotten a job at a mid-sized pharmaceutical company. I was in an entry-level position, mostly dealing with internal documentation, shipping logs, and basic reporting. Still, it paid all right, and more importantly, there was room to grow. It was during one of those routine office days, buried in paperwork, that I met Valeria. She worked for a logistics company that partnered with ours. They handled internal package transfers between branches. That afternoon, she came in with a small padded envelope meant for my supervisor. He was out at the time, and I was the one stuck covering his deliveries. I didn't think much of it at first, just another delivery person dropping off something. Valeria walked in with this professional, straight-to-business energy. She looked like she didn't waste time with small talk. And for some reason, that made me want to get her to laugh. I don't know why. So I made a dumb joke about how we were the most exciting stop on her route and how she should savor the experience. It wasn't a great joke, but she smiled. Over the next few weeks, every time Valeria had a delivery for our floor, she didn't just drop it and leave. She started lingering, asking questions, first about work, then about me. At some point, she stopped pretending it was just about the packages. She had this warm, earthy charm about her. And it didn't take long before I realized I wanted to be part of whatever that was. I was single, not caught up in any messy situations, and for the first time in a while, someone genuinely interesting was right in front of me. She seems to see something in me, too. So I decided not to overthink it. One afternoon, she stopped by my office like she does when she's around. As she was about to leave, I asked her casually, "So what's the plan for tonight?" I expected her to say she was going out with friends or something light. But instead, she smiled and said, "Sleep. Just sleep." We both laughed. It was such a funny response, and it broke any tension that might have been there. That's when I figured, this is my window. I told her, "I've got a better plan. There's this new place my friend told me about. Good food, quiet vibe. I think you'd like it." For a moment, she didn't say anything. She just looked at me, like she was sizing me up, deciding if I was serious. Then she gave a little nod, said, "All right," and that was it. I took her number, and by that evening, we were sitting across from each other at that restaurant. The place actually lived up to the hype. It was trendy, but not noisy, had that warm lighting. We talked for hours, from music to food to random little things that somehow felt important. That night ended in the best way possible. After that, we kept in touch, chatting and calling. I found myself looking forward to hearing from her. It didn't take long before I realized I was falling. A few more dates in, I stopped dancing around it. I looked her in the eye one day and asked her straight up, "Would you be my girlfriend?" And she smiled and said yes. I remember walking out of that cafe afterward like I had just hit the jackpot. And in that moment, I truly believed I had. For the first 3 years, things between Valeria and me were good. It wasn't some whirlwind fairy tale, but we seemed to understand each other. In those 3 years, we went on weekend trips, binge-watched dumb shows, and had long late-night talks about everything and nothing. She got along with my friends, and I got used to her habits, even the weird ones. We had arguments here and there, but they never felt like the kind that would break us. But after her younger sister got married, I noticed a subtle shift, but I could feel it. Valeria started bringing up marriage, casually at first. A joke here, when it's our turn there. But over time, it got more pointed. She began talking more about her parents' expectations, about how, in her culture, it wasn't just about what we wanted, it was about what her family expected. And they expected her to settle down. Soon. I understood where she was coming from. I respected it. Her family was close-knit and traditional. And I knew that pressure wasn't easy to carry. But I also knew I wasn't ready to propose yet. Not because I didn't want to, I did, and I loved her. But I had made myself a promise. I wouldn't go into marriage scrambling financially. I had a promotion coming up that I'd worked hard for, and with that would come the kind of salary that could actually support the kind of wedding Valeria had always dreamed about. So I asked her to be patient. I told her the promotion was close, and that I just needed a little more time. But something about that conversation broke the rhythm we had. She said she understood, but after that, she started pulling away. She'd take hours to return my calls. Sometimes she didn't reply to texts at all. She started acting like everything between us was on autopilot, like she wasn't really in it anymore. There was this coldness in how she spoke to me, like she'd already started emotionally checking out. I tried to talk to her about it, but she brushed it off. So, a few days before the weekend, Valeria sent me a message. It read, "Hey, are you free this weekend? My parents want to meet you." I stared at my phone for a second. I hadn't expected that. I mean, yeah, we were serious, but meeting the parents? That's a big step. And, to be honest, I didn't feel ready for it. My first instinct was to tell her no, and I did. I even started typing some excuse, but before I could send it, she texted again. Really? What could possibly be more important than meeting my parents? That stopped me cold. I didn't have a good answer. I wasn't actually busy. I just felt nervous. Meeting someone's parents is tricky. You don't know what they expect, and if they don't like you, it changes everything. I tried calling her, hoping to explain it better over the phone, but she was firm. Look, if we're serious about each other, this shouldn't be up for debate. She had a point. I didn't want to fight. We'd already had a couple of small arguments lately, and I wasn't trying to start another one over this. So I caved and said yes. The change in her tone was instant. Great. They're going to love you, she said, like she had no doubt. That made me feel a little better, but still, I knew I had to bring my A game. First impressions matter, especially with parents. So, I started preparing. I went out and bought a really nice bottle of wine. I picked out dark jeans, a blazer, and polished shoes. I even Googled basic dinner etiquette, just in case. By the time Saturday came, I was dressed like I was going to a job interview. And, in a way, I kind of was. I was showing up to prove that I was good enough for their daughter. I drove over to their house with a wine bottle on the passenger seat. I remember sitting in the car for just a moment after parking, taking a deep breath, and telling myself, okay, just be yourself. Be respectful. You've got this. Then I stepped out, walked up to their front door, rang the bell, and waited. Dinner at Valeria's parents' house started off pretty smoothly, honestly. They were warm when they opened the door, smiling like they'd been looking forward to meeting me. Her dad even gave me a firm handshake. We made our way into the living room, and while Valeria and her mom went off to the kitchen to finish up, her dad offered me a seat and a drink. We got into a light conversation. He nodded a lot and asked good questions. I thought to myself, okay, this might go better than I expected. When Valeria's mom called from the kitchen that dinner was ready, we got up and moved to the dining room. Everything looked good. I even said a small thank you in my head, because I was genuinely grateful to be there. At first, dinner went fine. Her dad kept the conversation going, still curious about my job. I could tell he was testing the waters, trying to figure me out. I answered everything calmly, trying not to overthink it. But then something shifted. Her mom said something in Spanish, and all of a sudden, the whole family burst out laughing. Everyone except me. Now I speak Spanish. I understand it well, but I didn't let that show. I just kept eating and looking down at my plate like I didn't catch a word. What she said, though, it cut. She basically said that my entry-level job wouldn't be enough to properly take care of anyone, let alone their daughter. And that laugh wasn't friendly. Her husband, still speaking in Spanish, added that of all the men Valeria had ever brought home, I looked like I had the least ambition. That part stung more than I expected. Then Valeria chimed in too. She said she was just managing me. She told them she only brought me there so they could meet me before she eventually found someone better. I'll never forget that. My face was calm, but my stomach twisted. I had never felt so small in a room that pretended to be warm. At one point, her mom even looked straight at me and asked, still in Spanish, if they were sure I didn't understand what they were saying. Valeria laughed and said I was too stupid to even know what we were talking about. And then, as if nothing had happened, her mom switched to English and asked me with a smile, "Are you enjoying the food, Raymond?" I looked up at her, smiled right back, and said, "Yes, ma'am. It's really delicious. Thank you." And you know what? I wasn't lying. The food was good. It's just everything else at that table that left a bad taste in my mouth. As the evening wound down and dessert plates were being cleared, I stood up, looked around the table, and calmly thanked Valeria's parents for their hospitality, in Spanish. I spoke clearly, deliberately, just loud enough for everyone to hear. The moment the words left my mouth, the room froze. Her father, who had been all smiles and smug looks all evening, stiffened in his chair. Her mother blinked like she was trying to make sense of what she'd just heard. And Valeria looked like the blood drained straight out of her face. That grin she'd been wearing all night vanished. I told them, still in Spanish, that I understood everything that had been said throughout the night. Every insult, every joke, every condescending comment that they thought flew over my head. And then, still calmly, I picked up my coat, nodded politely, and walked out the front door to my car. I had never once mentioned in the 3 years Valeria and I were together that I had studied Spanish in high school for 4 years. I wasn't fluent, no, not even close, but I understood it well enough. I couldn't carry on a full conversation smoothly, but I knew the words. I recognized the tone. I knew enough to sit there through an entire dinner and hear myself being mocked to my face without flinching. And funny enough, I had actually spent the last week practicing one sentence, just one, "Thank you for having me," because I wanted to make a good impression. By the time I got home, my phone had lit up with at least 10 missed calls from her. A few texts too, the usual mix of panic and guilt. She kept asking why I never told her I could understand Spanish, like that was the real betrayal. Not the way she laughed at me. Not the way she let her parents tear me down for sport. I stared at the screen for a long minute, then turned the phone face down on the counter. I didn't block her. I didn't even respond. I just let the silence speak for me. Because after hearing what I heard at that table, I didn't feel like I owed her a single word more. The next day was Sunday morning, and I was just lying on the couch, half watching some random documentary playing in the background. I hadn't touched my phone all morning. I didn't want to. I'd been quiet since that dinner. No calls, no texts, no explanations. I figured silence would say more than I ever could. That was the plan, anyway. But then I heard the knock. I already had a feeling who it was before I even got up. Sure enough, I opened the door, and there she was, Valeria. She looked pissed, tired, and confused all at once. The first thing out of her mouth was, "Why are you ignoring me?" It was a straight confrontation. I didn't flinch. I told her flat out, "I don't owe you anything." And I meant that. Whatever we had, whatever I thought we were building together, that ended that night. She tried to brush it off like it was all just a harmless joke. Said I was taking it too seriously. That she didn't mean any of it. But that's the thing. Whether she meant it or not didn't matter. Some things you don't say about someone you claim to care about. Some things you just don't do. And the way she laughed that night? That wasn't someone making an innocent joke. That was someone comfortable disrespecting me. When she stepped forward and tried to come inside, I didn't even hesitate. I stopped her. I told her clearly, "You're not welcome here." Her face dropped. She didn't expect that. Maybe she thought I'd argue or give in. Instead, I just shut the door. I locked it. That silence didn't last long. She started texting, calling, voice notes. At first, it was the usual, "You're overreacting. Can we talk?" Then it turned sour. The guilt trips. The insults. Name calling. Blaming me for being too sensitive or too cold. I watched it all pile up on my screen until it was just noise. That's when I blocked her phone, social media, everything. I did it to breathe. I did it because I finally saw her clearly, and I realized I deserved peace. So, I gave it to myself. Walking away from that relationship wasn't easy. I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. There were good moments when I truly believed we had something strong. But after that dinner, after seeing who she really was when she thought I wasn't watching or listening, I couldn't pretend anymore. Respect is a line you don't cross. And once it's gone, it doesn't come back. So I ended things. The days that followed were heavy. There were moments I'd catch myself wondering if I missed a sign, if there was something I could have done differently. But the truth is, sometimes people wear masks, so well that even when you're looking straight at them, you don't see the cracks until it's too late. I had to accept that, not blame myself, and just move forward. So that's what I started doing. I turned inward with intention. I began focusing on myself, my goals, my career, my health, the little things I had neglected. I poured energy into my work, picked up books I'd been meaning to read, and reconnected with a few old friends. I wasn't out there looking to fill the space she left. I wanted to understand it, sit with it, and grow from it. I won't say I'm all better. Healing doesn't happen overnight. But I'm getting there. And what keeps me going is knowing that I didn't let that night define me. I didn't stoop to her level. I stood up for myself in the way that mattered, with dignity. One day, I'll meet someone who sees me fully and doesn't play games. But until then, I'm okay being on my own. In fact, I'm more than okay. I'm learning who I am without anyone else's noise clouding my voice. And if there's one thing I've taken from all this, it's that self-respect is non-negotiable. No matter how much you care for someone, you have to care for yourself more. That dinner may have been the end of a relationship, but for me, it was the start of something better. A life that's honest, peaceful, and fully mine. Thank you for watching.